there. What's up? I'm Mr. Honish. Welcome to my flipped classroom. Today we look at the Caribbean islands, or Caribbean islands. It really doesn't matter how you pronounce it. Either one is correct. But bottom line is the Caribbean islands are a tropical paradise stretching from the southern tip of Florida to the northern coast of South America. The Caribbean islands are an archipelago, which means, yeah, you should already know what that means. Anyway, to the west of the archipelago is the Caribbean Sea, and to the east is the Atlantic Ocean. The Caribbean can generally be divided into two main island groups. The Greater Antilles, which include the large major islands like Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, which includes the countries of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. Commonwealth, or self-governing territory associated with another country. We also have the Lesser Antilles, which include all the smaller islands. And then there's the Bahamas. It's kind of its own group of islands, much closer to Florida, that doesn't really fit into the Greater or Lesser Antilles. Many of the Caribbean islands are actually the top of mountains and volcanoes that begin underwater and only have a small portion that rise above sea level. Other Caribbean islands begin as coral reefs that were gradually pushed upwards and became flat areas of limestone. Now, like its neighbor, Central America, the Caribbean experiences a warm tropical climate where seasons are divided as wet and dry rather than cold and warm. They are also prone to summer hurricanes, however, which pose a very big threat to people living on the islands. Since they are islands and are surrounded by water, typically the people have fewer escape options when hurricanes come. Most people look back to the arrival of Christopher Columbus as the first significant event in Caribbean history. I don't want to get on my soapbox for too long here about Christopher Columbus and why on earth we have a holiday about this mass-murdering thief, but let's just say there were people living successfully in the Caribbean way before Columbus got there, and he kind of ruined their lives. You won't find how Columbus ruined their lives in your textbook. You will, however, find a question on page 200 asking you to imagine you are a part of his crew and will be staying at a trading post on one of the islands, and to think about what you would expect in your new home. I'll save you the trouble. Here's the answer. The Arawaks of Hispaniola were forced to mine for gold that wasn't there, because Columbus was fooled by their jewelry, and he thought Hispaniola was the world's biggest gold deposit. When the Arawaks could not produce enough gold for Columbus and the Spanish, they were punished in a number of ways, ranging from having their hands cut off to being murdered. It got to a point where the Arawak mothers began killing their children to save them from the pain and suffering they would face from the Spanish. So, pardon me if I get upset about how the post office shuts down to celebrate Columbus Day. Anyway, the Spanish didn't stick around for long because eventually they figured out that maybe the reason the Arawaks weren't bringing them gold was because, shocker, there wasn't a whole lot of gold. However, the British, French, Dutch, and Danish set up lots of colonies to take advantage of the agriculture and trade routes found here. To help meet their labor needs, they imported African slaves, which is the main reason there are so many people with African roots living in the Caribbean today, and why African cultural elements have helped shape Caribbean music, food, clothing, and language. Today you can hear Spanish, English, French, or various dialects being spoken. Dialects are regional varieties of a language. Now, some dialects heard in the Caribbean would include Creole, which blends some French and English, and you might hear it on the History Channel with the alligator hunting guys in the boats. You know, you can't understand them. It's because they're speaking Creole, very popular in Louisiana as well. Economically speaking, the Caribbean went through the same process of agonizingly slow independence as their Central American neighbors. The U.S. remained the most dominant trade partner and ran many plantations even after they became independent. Cuba found an interesting way to isolate themselves from the U.S., though, and became a communist country under the leadership of Fidel Castro in 1959. They kicked American businesses out of the country and formed a really tight bond with the Soviet Union, aka the mortal enemy of the United States at that time. Their bond was so tight that they once had Soviet nuclear missiles brought to Cuba, 90 miles from Florida, which for some reason freaked out everybody in the U.S. and led to us really distrusting them and starting an embargo, which means banning trade with the country. The relationship has remained tense, but in recent years it has shown signs of possible reconciliation. Today, the Caribbean islands rely on tourism for a great deal of their income, since it is a beautiful tropical paradise. Still, many Caribbean islands remain poor. Haiti, for instance, is one of the absolute poorest countries in the world. Because of all the Caribbean islands' small size, it would really be unreasonable to expect a huge boom in economic growth for many of these countries based on natural resources, since their potential for growth is really limited. Tourism money can open many doors to economic development and improve standard of living, though. What matters is if they take their tourism profits and reinvest it the right way. So that's something to keep an eye on for now and in the future, but for right now, go study. And until next time, bye-bye.
Production assistance provided by Lauren Schaefer, Brianna Larson, and Jalen Rudolph. Heckling provided by Taylor Bloom.
How much film are you going to do trying to capture a blooper of me doing something stupid? Their bond was so tight that they once had Soviet nuclear missiles pointed at... Just leave it. I'll pick it up from right here. I'll probably just show a little picture, cut away, I'll cut back. I can trim the audio. All right. Back in the right frame of mind. It got to a point where Arawak mothers began killing their children to save them from the pain and suffering they would face from the Spanish. So pardon me for bouncing my niece.
Honish is bored. I know.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Are we going?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's recorded for like 2 minutes.
It got to a point. You're crinkling your Chex Mix bag.
Oh my god!
What? Oh, there's a huge bug. Get in on this.
He wants my Chex Mix.
Look at this bug.
Crap! How do you zoom in?
Hello, little friend. Do you want to learn about the Caribbean? Actually, you're not a very little friend. You look like you're going to eat my finger.
Scary. Oh my god! Ew! What is that?
Come here, little friend. You do not want to go on this piece of paper.
He doesn't like it. You gotta use your finger. Go, 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 go. Oh my gosh.
Oh. Just unplug that. Still going right now? Why? I'm going to have to edit all this out.